The Nigerian economy was the focus of the Business Eye magazine Annual Roundtable. Experts and stakeholders explored the theme, ensuring sustainable recovery and growth in a fragile economy.
Our Annual Roundtable is a marketplace of ideas that allows interaction and discourse in a free flow. This year's edition is a delight, coming on the heels of the World Bank and IMF cautionary advice that the numbers regardless, Nigeria's economy may still be quite vulnerable. I admit that this is no earth-shaking discovery, and certainly not shocking news if you live in Nigeria and have to buy and sell in this market. Government is pleased that it is technically out of recession. They bandy good numbers, and it might be uhuru sooner than later. It is on the back of this that our roundtable today takes a look at how we can ensure sustainable recovery and growth in a fragile economy.
Notable financial expert Mr. Bismarck Rewani gave some perspectives to the outlook for the Nigerian economy in 2018.
To look out for, GDP growth in 2018 will be above 2%. Inflation will reduce and then begin to come back up at 14.2. Interest rates will come down. Oil price will stay stable at where it is now. We are good. So even if it goes down, the first 3 months we've averaged over $63, $64, and we can do well at $50 a barrel and producing at 1.8. Because even when it was $114 a barrel, 120, the first $40 or $50 was stolen. The next $20 or $30 was wasted, and what was left was actually 50. So if we use 50, right, the exchange rate will stay at about 370 and probably depreciate a little bit more, and money supply growth will go this way. So this is the outlook. The sectors that will grow are Greek, oil, a bit, and some other activities. Sectoral, we've talked about that. Inflation outlook I've already talked about. Money supply I've spoken about. Interest rate outlook we said. But oil price outlook will determine most of the things that we are trying to do. Domestic oil production should remain stable as long as we keep the Niger Delta guys engaged. And the exchange rate will depreciate somewhat. Let's not deceive ourselves. It has to depreciate to maintain stability. So the challenges are that, like I said before, policy rigidities and dogmatic thinking. And then institutions for conflict resolution are weak. So that if there's conflict today in Nigeria, you cannot, right? And when in the absence of institutions for conflict resolution, you must have credible personalities that can call people. So those personalities, credible personalities, are non-existent. From the traditional rulers to the warlords to the politicians, they are no credible. So if there's a crisis, the institutions don't exist, the people with credibility don't exist, and the policy rigidities are there. So it's a very dangerous environment. In summary, recovery will continue. It will dip in 2019. There are some very hard choices to make. And oil prices will stay above 63, we hope. PIB will be passed, but it's just nominal. New investments in upstream, midstream, we are seeing rig count increasing. But the biggest risk is political risk. Because you are 10 months or 9 months to a general election, and none of the parties have appointed party officials or elected party. None of them has been able to have a convention. None of them have candidates. You have candidates without parties. There are more candidates without parties than parties without candidates, right? So it is a problem. Ekiti election is 4 months, 5 months. There has been no World Congress to even elect. And everybody is declaring. So you have to have a World Congress, you have to have a state Congress, and you need to, even if there's a conflict, you have to go to the appeal court to resolve who the true candidate. So time is short, options are limited, and the odds are quite long.
In his presentation, Mr. Olufemi Awoyemi, the CEO of Proshare, giving his assessment and outlook for the economy, called for coherence in the economic policies of the government.
When you have this decision, you are faced with only three options. One, option A. That means to combine A and B. That means you have a stable exchange rate or have free capital flows. And I think that's what we were trying to run in 2014 under the GEG administration. Option B is to have an independent monetary system, policy, and free capital flows. That could never work in Nigeria. And option C is to have a stable exchange rate and an independent sovereign monetary policy. So Nigeria basically operates option C. If you are looking for change, that's your first change. We move from option A type situation to option C. And this is driven by so many things. In 2014, just before the elections, I had made a bold prediction that Nigerians should prepare for hardship. That whatever you have seen before, by 2015, you will see that it is that. It wasn't so difficult to see it because of that understanding. And so it was clear that this thing was going to happen. But no sooner, nobody took any notice of it. You see, the storms was already gathering as far back as 2014. There's this narrative out there that was so great in 2014. We had only one objective in 2015, get rid of Jonathan. But we then went into our usual default mode, expect things to be better once Jonathan is gone. We have failed to understand that it's how all economics will suffer to politics. And that was the beginning of the problem. I do understand that when people say Nigeria, because of its potential, should be a 10% growth economy, I believe so. We can actually we shouldn't be talking less than 10% as the GDP growth rate of this economy. We're talking up to 2050. This country sat down under Obasanjo, I think in 2010, I believe, when we wrote the Vision 2020 document. Everybody came together, finalized it, agreed it, put all the documents in place. The next administration came in, changed it, created their own, called it Transformation Agenda. This one came in and called his own ERGP. And everybody is focused on two things, recovery and growth. But yet, 2 years to the end of Vision 2020, there's nothing to show for it. And it's not really a function of anything. It's like the concept, which I believe, I think it was Kechi also said it to me. He said, everybody must understand that governance is about being a shift worker. You do your shift, you move on. Somebody else comes in, does his own shift, move on. The country will exist long after those individuals are gone. They talk that Nigeria's economy, we are looking for diversification. The Nigerian economy has already been diversified long years ago. What we need to diversify is the revenue of the Nigerian economy. The economy is diversified. We're operating in different sectors all over, but the government's revenue is not diversified. Let's not confuse one for the other. The total cost of implementing an APC manifesto would amount to 60 trillion naira at 2015 base prices, or 300 billion. Which is 60% of Nigeria's GDP. That's at 2015 prices. Equity portion of it accounts for a fifth, the efficiency portions account for 40%, and guarantees will take the rest. That means Nigeria requires, at a minimum, an annual expenditure of 12 trillion at 2015 prices. If we then bring it up to today's prices at 360, at a minimum, a reasonable budget in this country should be around 18-20 trillion. That's when we begin to have a conversation as to how to run the Nigerian economy.
Mrs. Ibim Semenitari and Mr. Bismarck Rewani speak on the essence and key takeaways from the summit.
The outlook, as far as I'm concerned, is that the economy has started picking up. There's a recovery at hand. It's slow, it's uneven, it's fragile. It calls for hard work on the part of the citizens, but more important, decisive and insightful leadership, purposeful leadership on the part of the government and the policymakers. All of these things put together means that Nigeria can go beyond just suboptimal growth, which is what we have now, to accelerated and sustained growth in the future.
What the business side has always done is set up an avenue for conversation. Because part of things that led us to start the magazine was the fact that we said there's an absence of debate and an absence of conversation. And no nation grows without ideas contesting for space. The Business Eye Roundtable happens every year, and which usually we bring experts to sit down and look at the year. and say, where are we going? Do an analysis of where we're coming from. It's a twin to our annual prediction series. And so this year, for instance, we've seen some growth in the economy, and we're saying it's evident that this growth is fragile. So how can we converse around the issues of sustainability of the growth and development that have so far come, and where we're taking this? And why we do this is we believe that at the end of the day, the media has a role in a democracy to not just about setting agenda, not just about reporting issues, but driving growth. And for us, this is our contribution to driving growth in our own country.
And what are key takeaways from this?
I think it was a good meeting. First is something crucial, which sometimes we never remember. And that's what Mr. Ariwane kept harping on, the need for us to realize that we have to give up something, whether as individuals or as a country. We certainly would have to review our priorities and decide what is it we can allow to rest so that we can be buoyant. And then the fact that from all of our speakers, it's clear that there's a possibility of a growth that is in double digits. And so it's just that we're not doing the right things. And if we restructure and do the right things, it is possible for Nigeria to grow in double digits.
Nigeria's economic growth is still fragile, as international financial institutions like the IMF and the World Bank have pointed out in their reports. The task ahead for policymakers and the political players is ensuring that the economy achieves a sustained growth that is inclusive.